thanks to Sangam Talks. It's a pleasure to be on Sangam Talks, and I'll start by sharing my presentations. So, as introduced, my name is Rajaram Mohan Rai. I've been named after the great social reformer. This talk is dedicated to late Professor B.N. Narhari Acharya. I had great respect for him. He pioneered the application of astronomy software for dating of our scriptures. And this talk is somewhere related to Professor B.N. Narhari Achar, his debate with Mr. Nilesh Oak. That's where it all started. So I'll get to that later. So as mentioned, I have done my bachelor's from IIT Kanpur, PhD from the Ohio State University. It was followed by postdoctoral fellowship at University of Toronto. And I have worked in the area of material science, materials processing, process flow sheet development for over 25 years. And I also have deep interest in ancient Indian history and astronomy. Mr. Nilesh Oak has claimed that Ramayana, the Ram-Ravan war, Yuddh, took place in 12,209 BCE. And this dating has become very, very popular. In fact, a lot of my IIT colleagues have also shared it. So I have taken a deeper look at it behind the dating because first thing as a scientist, we know that things don't go back to 12,000 BCE. For one thing, it was an ice age. There is no evidence of any civilization at that time. So how is it possible? And so what is the evidence? So that's what we are going to go into it. So if we go into the evidence, what Mr. Oak has presented for this dating is very clear. The logic is very clear that he presents four specific observations from Ramayana. And then he says that all these observations show that Ramayana cannot be dated anytime after 10,000 BCE. And these are the four observations. First, he claims that Chaitra month is described as being in the Sarad season. We know that Chaitra month currently is in the Vasant season. Traditionally, we know that Chaitra and Vaisakh belong to Vasant. But he says that because of precession at the time of Ramayana in 12,000 BCE, Chaitra was in Sarad season. And following that, then he claims that Ashwin was in the Vasant season. We know that traditionally or currently, Ashwin and Kartik belong to Sarad season. But he claims that, so basically he claims that months and seasons have been shifted by 6 months, where 6 months shifted during the time of Ramayana. He further claims that the sun was setting near the Pushya Nakshatra during the Hemant season. And that puts the timing to 11,500 to 17,500 BC. And further, the fourth one is that the Brahma Rasi, Vega, Abhijit, he equates all of them, that Brahma Rasi was Vega, and Vega and Abhijit is so basically Abhijit Nakshatra's Yogtara of Abhijit Nakshatra is Vega. So he is claiming that Vega or Abhijit is same as Brahma Rasi, and Ramayana describes this Abhijit star as a pole star. And if that is true, then he says that this proves that the time was between 10,000 BC to 14,000 BC, and that's the reference for that. And it's also in his book also. So we are going to go over each of the evidence that he has presented for each of these. So we go to the very first one, and the first one, the claim is that Chaitra was in the Sarad instead of Vasant, and his evidence is Ayodhyakand 3.4. It's on the pages 57 to 59 in his book. So what I do here, so all I need to do to refute him is simply present what is there in the Ramayana, because ultimately we are dating the Ramayana and it has to be decided by what is in the Ramayana. So we see that here, and I press here the Gita Press translation. So all through, I have written blogs with 10 articles refuting him in great scientific detail. There I have quoted like 6 different translations. But in this presentation, I will just give Gita Press translation because they are supposed to be a standard translation. And but this one just says, यह चैत्र मास बड़ा सुंदर और पवित्र है, इसमें सारे वन खिल उठे हैं. So basically saying that this is Chaitra season and the flowers are blooming. Now, Oak is claiming that the blooming of flowers is proof of Sarad season, Sarad Ritu. But flowers bloom in the Vasant season. That's the normal thing. We all know that. So he just claiming that because of precession, this cannot be referring to Vasant season, and therefore it must refer to Sarad season. But that's an argument based upon an hypothesis. As far as I can see the evidence is in support of Vasant, not Sarad. And then he claims there is further evidence, and he gives 6 different verses from Ramayana, and they are all listed here. And these are on his pages 76, 77 of his book, The Historic Rama. Ayodhya-Kand 2.17, 3.36, 7.31, 15.33, 19.37, 44.3. So let me just present all of these. That's all I need to do. And you see here, I have they are all Gita Press translations. And if you don't understand Hindi, I'll just kind of say that in English. So you can see that 2.17. And what he says his evidence is that जैसे मोर मधुर केकाराव फैलाते हुए वर्षा करने वाले महामेघ का अभिनंदन करते हैं. जैसे, and the जैसे means like. So basically saying like the peacocks, they dance in the rainy season. So it's not even talking about Sarad season. He's making a Varsa season into the Sarad season, and that also is an analogy. It's just jaise, like that. It's not a saying that it was Sarad season. And the next one, 3.36. Here you say, ठीक उसी तरह, जैसे निर्मल. So the right one I am having some, I cannot read because of the icon. So, और नक्षत्रों से भरा हुआ शरत काल का आकाश चंद्रमा से उद्भासित हो उठता है. So basically, the sky is like a moon in the Sarad season. So again, you have got an analogy. This is not any evidence of Sarad season. And same, we go to Ayodhya-Kand 7.31, and it says, वह शरद पूर्णिमा के चंद्र मंडल की भांति उद्दीप्त हो उठी. So she became lighted like the full moon of the Sarad season. So again, this is analogy. This is no proof of any Sarad season. And we continue with the next one, 15.32. वह सारा भवन शरद ऋतु के बादलों की भांति श्वेत कांति से दीप्तिमान और मेरु पर्वत की कंदरा के समान शोभायमान था. It was like the clouds of Sarad season. It's all analogies. There is no proof of Sarad season here. And we go to the final two that he has presented. And say जैसे शरद काल का उद्दीप्त किरणों वाला चंद्रमा अपने सहज त्याग का. So just say that just like the moon of Sarad season. And you know that in our literature, if you go, they always compare anybody's face. If they like it, they will think it's very handsome, very beautiful. They will say that it is like the full moon of the Sarad season. It is so beautiful. But that does not mean that it was Sarad season. And the last one, ठीक उसी तरह जैसे शरद ऋतु का थोड़े जल वाला बादल शीघ्र ही छिन्न भिन्न हो जाता है, like the cloud in the Sarad season gets dispersed. Again, so all of these that he has presented are simple analogies. None of this says that it was Sarad season according to Ramayana. And if you think that all these, he has given the evidence, all these analogies are from Sarg 2 to Sarg 44. And I looked through, and in between, so analogies are not going to be consistent. He thinks that just because there are analogies of Sarad, so there is Sarad season. But right in between the 2 and 44, I found in 20.49 Ayodhya-Kand. And here what they say. He said that जो तुम्हारे विछोह की बात सुनकर भी वर्षा काल के नूतन जल के प्रवाह से टकराए हुए महानदी के कगार की बात फट नहीं जाती है. So here is an analogy for the rainy season, right in between the analogies of Sarad season. Analogies are not going to be consistent. They don't actually refer to the seasons. So here, if we follow his logic, then we will have his very first one was actually an analogy of rainy season. So we have rainy season, then we have Sarad season, and then again we have rainy season, and then again we have Sarad season. It's so absurd. So to go into the details of it, to really understand, here I present what is the system, what is the calendar, the Vedic calendar. And so we see here that in the Vedic Hindu calendar, the year is divided in 2 parts. So we call Uttarayan when the sun is going northwards, and we call Dachinayan when the sun is going southwards. So these are 6 months. And in the Uttarayan, we have, instead of like in US, Canada, we have got 4 seasons of 3 months each. The standard division was 2 months each in India. And so each one of these Uttarayan and Dachinayan consisted of three seasons that were of 2 months duration. So it started with Sisir and then Vasant and then Grism, and it was followed in Dachinayan with Varsa, Sarad and Hemant. And here it gets interesting. So right now we have the months that are like Magh, Phagun, Chaitra, Baisakh into Vasant, and so you can go that. Just Asad in summer and like that, and Sawan Bhadro, we know that it belongs to Varsa season. So that's the one that we are using right now. But if we go to the very beginning of our civilization in the Vedas and the literature that came later in the Brahmanas, and also in the Vedang Jyotish, and even further later, you have these mention of these months, tropical months, so basically seasonal months, and these are called Tap Tapasya. So this Sisir was also divided into Tap and Tapasya, and also in Magh and Phagun. And then we had Vasant for Madhu and Madhav in Vasant. We had Shukra and Suchi in Grisma. We have Nav and Navasi in Varsa, and East Urj in Sarad, and Saha and Sahas in Hemant. And then what happened? That these are the assumed to be tropical months, so these are seasonal months. And these Magh, Phagun, these are lunisolar months, so these depend upon the phases. So these were visual to see, but these go off from the seasons, and from time to time they are brought back to match with the seasons, so that we have these Adhik Mas when we had extra months, or sometimes we had Chhai Mas when we had to remove some of these months to keep them in track. So basically, if you look at the literature, always in the literature, and I have not seen any exception. So whenever it says Tap Tapas, it's always translated as Madhu, Magh and Phalgun. So Tap will always be Magh, Tapas will always be Phalgun, Madhu will always be Chaitra, Madhav will always be Vaisakh, and like that. So these are two corresponding terms, and even though they are not same, but they were close enough to be always translated like that. So now we see the actual evidence in the Ramayana itself. And here you see in the Gita Press, Kiskandakand 26.14, सौम्य वर्षा कहलाने वाले 4 मास या चौमासे आ गए. इसमें पहला मास या श्रावण जो जल की प्राप्ति कराने वाला है आरंभ हो गया. So it's saying the rainy season has started and its first month is Shravan. And if you go back to the table that I showed you, we know that the Shravan and Bhadra belong to Varsha. And that's what Ramayana is saying exactly. No difference. There is no 6-month change from the months to the seasons. And we go further, and Kiskandakand has a lot of. So we go to the next one, Kiskandakand 28.2. It tells you that the rainy season has come. And then further one, 28.54, and it tells you the Bhadra ka mahina aa gaya. The month of Bhadrapad is here. So it's telling you the Bhadrapad is in the Varsa season. It has already told you the first month Shravan is in the Varsa season. They are exactly the same. There is no 6-month shift from the months and seasons. And it tells you the 28.55, it tells you that the Asad, Kipurnima, and it says Gat, so it has gone. The Asad month is gone, obviously. So the summer, Asad belongs to the summer, it's gone. Now is the rainy season. Exactly same way that we have the standard months and seasons. And then again we continue, and it 28.57 again tells you that it's still talking about rainy season. Varsa anek gunon se sampann hai. So rainy season is continuing. And it says further, we go to 28.66, and it tells you Sharad Kal ki pratiksha kijiye. Wait for the Sharad season to arrive. So exactly, we have the summer is gone. Right now is rainy season, and Sharad season is still to come. And the Sharad Varsa season has got Shravan. So exactly the same as that is. So what he has got no proof, just analogies. And the clear proof, the exact proof the Ramayana is giving is this. That's exactly the way we have it. Now we will go into the argument that it cannot be because of the precession. And that I will tackle or discuss in the second part. So we'll keep that discussion of why it is not according to the precession. If he thinks it should be happening, then why it is not. And that's a separate good discussion. And we have got further proof. And this was given by Dr. Jasri Sarnathan. She's a brilliant Indic researcher. And so if we follow that, so here we follow just like 4 verses from Balkand in Gita Press. And it tells you exactly that Chaitra month was in the Vasant season. So here, 12.1, it says that वसंत ऋतु का आरंभ हुआ था. So the you have the वसंत season has started and राजा दशरथ उसी शुभ समय में यज्ञ करने का विचार किए. So King Dasarath wanted to, he thought that he will do a yajna. That was the Vasant season. So that's 12.1. And if you go to 13.1, so the next सर्ग, and he says वर्तमान वसंत ऋतु के बीतने पर पुनः दूसरा वसंत आया. So 1 year has gone and this is the spring season and now he's really starting the yajna. So he went to the Vasishtha Rishi. And 14.1, so they started the Ashwamedh Yagna, and we know that in the Ashwamedh, horse is taken over, horse goes over and to whatever territories it goes, and there are people behind. If somebody wants to fight, they fight. Otherwise, when it comes back, all those people, wherever the horse has gone, they accept the sovereignty of the king. So, and then 14.1 say that वर्ष पूरा होने पर यज्ञ संबंधी अश्व भूमंडल में भ्रमण करके लौट आया. So after 1 year, the horse came back. And then you say that the final part of the Ashwamedh Yagna then started, and it lasted for 3 days, 14.40 to 4 months. So we still had 1 year, and we had still Vasant and 3 days. And then 18.8, that's where Ramayana talks about the birth of Lord Rama. He says, Bhagwan Ram का जब जन्म हुआ, 6 ऋतु में बीत गई. So 1 year has gone, 12वें मास, and it tells you that चैत्र के शुक्ल पक्ष की नवमी तिथि को Bhagwan Ram ka janm hua. So we have been given that it was the 9th day of Chaitra month. And of course, we follow the logic. Then it was the Vasant season. So the Chaitra month was clearly in the Vasant season. So it's the whole Ramayana is consistent with this. There is no question of the shift of 6 months from the seasons in Ramayana. In fact, there is no proof in anywhere in the Indian literature. So this is the logic that I have just discussed. So and it proves that the Chaitra Mas was in the Vasant season. So now we go to the second example, second argument that Mr. Oak has, and he calls these astronomy poison pills. So very fascinating name. That this is such an evidence that based upon astronomy, nobody can deny it. It's a poison pill. You cannot swallow it. And he says that Ashwin month was in Vasant season. So now he goes other way. So from arguing that Chaitra was in Sharad, so based on that, we'll have Ashwin in the Vasant. And he has got a verse from Ramayana for his claim. I say that, and that is the Kiskindha Kand, Sarg 53. And this verse is number 9 in some translations, number 22 in some. So obviously, there's a question of some verses being later, let's say, interpolations in the Ramayana. So, but the same verse is either 9 or 22 in different ones because I consulted 6 different translations. And so this is Mr. Oak's translation. This is the Vasant Ritu and the month of Ashwin is passing away. How are we going to find out Sita? So he has translated it, this verse as Vasant Ritu being and month being Ashwin. And further he says, by proper calculations from the time of our departure, now is the lunar month of Ashwin. So it's, and even that month seems to have passed. So this is his claim. So all we need to do is go to the Kiskindha Kand, Sarg 53, and the verse and see what the people who know how to translate say, the standard translations. Because Mr. Oak is not a Sanskrit scholar. And here is the verse. So you can read it. And it talks about Asyuj Mas, so that the Ashwin Mas. And the second line start with Prasthita. And here is the translation by Gita Press, वानरों, हम सब लोग वानर राज की आज्ञा से आश्विन मास बीतते बीतते 1 मास की निश्चित अवधि स्वीकार करके खोज सीता की खोज के लिए निकले थे. So what does it say? It is saying that they started in the Ashwin Mas. It does not say that it is now Ashwin Mas. It's very, very clear. The word is Prasthita. We departed. They not say that now it is there. They departed many months back. So he has got no proof. So the key word is Prasthita, and it means departure. So he has deliberately mistranslated to claim that this Ashwin month is falling in the Vasant season. Now see, if you go in the Ramayana again, I gave you so many proof, and here is another proof. And this is from Kiskindha Kand, 1.34. I mean, the whole Sarg of 1 is a description of Vasant Ritu. You can go there, and the Vasant comes so many times in the in that Sarg. And here I give you 34 and 35. विदेह नंदनी सीता यहाँ मुझे दिखाई नहीं दे रही हैं, And later he says, यह वसंत भी मेरे शोक की वृद्धि कर रहा है. So this vasant, so this is the vasant season. मेरे शोक की वृद्धि कर रहा है. It's because he is separated, he's feeling sorrowful. And then in the very next one, he says, यह वन में बहने वाली चैत्र मास की वायु भी मुझे पीड़ा दे रही है. So it is the Chaitra Mas, the wind or breeze flowing in the month of Chaitra. So, I mean, you cannot be any more clear than that the Chaitra Mas is in the Vasant season. There is no proof of a 6-month shift of these months from the seasons. So now we go to the third evidence that Mr. Oak has claimed. And he claims, I've given you the reference, pages 60-61. Ramayana text refers to the setting of the sun near Nakshatra Pushya during the season of Hemant. So does Ramayana really say that? And he says it is in Aranyakanda 16.12. So we go to the Aranyakanda 16.12. So here he has given a description, his argument. It was one of the surgeon talks, so it is I think the Sangam talks presentation itself. And very popular one, I think. In Aranyakand, it is the time of Lakshman, Ram and Sita in Panchvati. It is the time of Hemant season. Hemant season would be over with the winter solstice, and Lakshman is describing the sky. During this Hemant Ritu, sun is setting on the western horizon near Nakshatra Pushya. And then he argues that this can only take place between 11,500 BCE to 17,500 BCE. So here I produce the verse that he's talking about. And you hear him talking this verse all the time. Nibrita Akasena Pushyanita Himaruna. And I have presented here the translation by Gita Press. Because we cannot go by his translation. He's not a Sanskrit scholar. We have to go by the standard translation. And it says, इस हेमंत काल में रातें बड़ी होने लगती हैं. इनमें सर्दी बहुत बढ़ जाती है. खुले आकाश में कोई नहीं सोते हैं. पौष मास की ये रातें हिमपात के कारण दूसर प्रतीत होती हैं. Where does it say that sun is setting near the Push Nakshatra? Nowhere. It just says that the nights are getting longer. People cannot sleep outside. It's getting colder. That's all it says. And I have 6 different translations. They all say the same thing. There is nowhere there is anything in this verse that can be claimed as sun setting in the Pushya Nakshatra. Now, very famous Sanskrit scholar, a very noted Sanskrit scholar, Mr. Nityanand Mishra. He also got interested in these claims after I started publishing my refutation. So he also looked into this, and he has published 2 articles refuting Mr. Nilesh Oak. I have given the reference down at the bottom. You can check his blog. And so I gave 6 translations. Mr. Nityanand Mishra went into so many different translations, local, different languages from different countries. And so basically, there is only one translation by Sripad Damodar Satwalekar that supports Oak's position. But Mr. Nityanand Mishra has explained that why he is wrong. And we have got like preponderance of evidence, all different translations. They all say that it has got nothing to do with the sun setting in the Pushya Nakshatra. So basically, you can see that he has got none of his evidence is clear cut. I mean, for claiming something like that, you need really evidence that is very, very clear, that cannot be refuted, that there cannot be any confusion about its meaning. And the 4th one is his claim of this Brahm Rasi Vega Abhijit being described as the pole star in Ramayana. And for this one, we'll need to go a little bit into astronomy. And he says, again in the same talk, the season talk, great sages are making parikrama, going around the fixed settled Brahm Rasi Abhijit. So first he just equates Brahm Rasi with Abhijit, for which there is really no evidence at all. And then claims that it's a pole star. So he's describing the pole star of Ramayana times, but you are experts now. You know now when Brahm Rasi was the pole, and 13,000 years ago, 12,000 BC, and like that. So we can say that Ramayana did not happen even a day later than 10,000 BCE. But what is the evidence? So this is his evidence. He claims Yuddhakand 4.4849. And here we see, it says, I've produced here the Sanskrit translation. Since I have a long presentation, I will not read that. I'll just go through the translation. And here you have got Gita Press translation. Maybe I have got it. Probably the worst number I put wrong, but the translation is भृगुनंदन शुक्र भी अपनी उज्जवल प्रभा से प्रकाशित हो आपके पीछे दिशा में प्रकाशित हो रहे हैं जहां सप्तर्षियों का समुदाय शोभा पाता है वह ध्रुव तारा भी निर्मल दिखाई देता है शुद्ध और प्रकाशमान समस्त सप्तर्षिगण ध्रुव को अपने दाहिने रखकर अपनी उनकी परिक्रमा कर रहे हैं so it's not I think I copied it wrong so it's still the translation of this Yuddhakand and it says that the Saptarsigan are going around the Dhruv. So it's not saying anywhere that the Abhijit is the pole star. So all it says is that seven sages are rotating around. It does not say that the seven sages are rotating around the Brahmarasi Abhijit. And this equating itself of Brahmarasi with Abhijit, there is no proof of it because Ramayana clearly knows Abhijit. It's mentioned in the Kiskindha Kand 63.15, which I have produced here. And in this one says सीता की खोज के लिए उत्सुक हो अभिजीत नक्षत्र से युक्त दक्षिण दिशा की ओर चल दिए. So it does not say that the Abhijit was pole star. Now, Mr. Oak says that the Mahabharata Bhishma Parv 3.18 proves that Brahmarasi was Abhijit star. And this one here I have given is a translation by Gita Press with the original. Vakranu Vakram Kritva cha Sravanam Pavak Prabha Brahmarasim Samavritya Lohitango Vyavasthita. So it's saying that Agni के समान कांतिमान मंगल ग्रह बारंबार वक्र होकर ब्रह्म राशि बृहस्पति से युक्त नक्षत्र श्रवण को पूर्ण रूप से आवृत्त करके स्थित है. So you can clearly see that it says what is Brahm Rasi and it says that in the brackets Brihaspati se Yuk Nakshatra. So Brahm Rasi is a nakshatra in which the planet Jupiter is at that point in time. That's all the Brahm Rasi is. There is no mention of this Brahm Rasi being same as Abhijit star. So in what Mr. Oak does, he places this Brahm Rasi near Shravan. So he translates it differently than what it is, let's say given by the Gita Press. After being fixed in the region of Chitra, Swati and moving in the direction after going through these motions, Mars approached the area of Nakshatra Shravan near Brahm Rasi. So he's claiming that, according to the words, he says that the Mars was going around the Brahm Rasi, and if he claims that Brahm Rasi was Abhijit, then Mars was going around Abhijit or the Vega star. So this is what, and he gives a sky map for this contention, in which he thinks that the Mars is near Abhijit Nakshatra in this. But what he has done, he has only given what is the equivalent of longitude or right ascensions, RA. So what Oak has done, so he has only used the RAs, which is the right ascension, so equivalent of longitude for sky objects, and the position of the astronomical bodies, but the positions are specified by two coordinates, as you do on the Earth. You need both longitude and latitude. And so if he wants to show that the two planetary bodies or two celestial bodies are close, then he has to use both right ascension and declination, which declination will be the equivalent of latitude. So you got to show both. We cannot accept that two places are near just based on longitude, because with that logic, we will have North Pole close to the equator. They are on the same longitude. But Mars can never be near Abhijit's Yogtara or Vega, and this can be easily shown if you consider the ecliptic coordinates. So what are these ecliptic coordinates? So basically just like on Earth, you measure longitude and latitude. So here you measure from the equator. If you look at the sky, there are different options. One is from the celestial equator being considered the fundamental plane, and that is called equatorial coordinates. If you use the ecliptic as the fundamental plane, then it's called ecliptic coordinates. Now, ecliptic is basically the plane in which Earth goes around the Sun, and its pole will be called, so just like we have North Pole and South Pole. So equivalently, if you consider the ecliptic, which is this as the fundamental plane, then you will have pole, and which will be called now north ecliptic pole K, and we'll have a south ecliptic pole K prime. And you can measure of any star. Then according to just like latitude and longitude, you can measure. Will be ecliptic latitude, and you'll have ecliptic longitude, which will be this gamma A. And these measurements are done from here, similar to what we do on Earth. We measure from the Greenwich. So that's an equivalent of that, which is the intersection of celestial equator and ecliptic. So what happens is that the stars' latitudes do not change in ecliptic coordinates. So because, and I show you here, let's see, we are talking about the Abhijit star, the Vega star, in 6000 BCE about, and we see here, I have used a stellarium, and in the stellarium you can select whatever star or planets you want to choose, and all the description for that time will be displayed on the left side. And you can see here, gives you the ecliptic longitude and latitude, and you have to go to this year on date because you're setting a date, and you'll see that it is 62 degree 5 minutes in 6000 BC. And if you go to, let's say, 2000 BC, latitude has not changed much. It will be 61 degree 53 minutes, so still close to 62 degree 5 minutes. And if we come to, let's say, closer to our time in 2000, and still it is 61 degree 43 minutes. So basically it is a well-known fact that the ecliptic latitude of the stars will not change in the ecliptic coordinate system. So we have the Vega always there at 62 degree ecliptic latitude. And so what about the Mars? Because the claim is that the Mars is going around this Vega star. And Mars, I checked for many years what is the maximum latitude, and it's always within plus minus 7 degrees latitude. And this is really expected because all the different planets, they are very close to the ecliptic during when they are going in the orbit. They don't deviate much. So the Mars maximum deviation is only 7 degrees. And you have that Vega is always 62 degrees, and Mars cannot go more than 7 degrees. So there is no question of Mars ever being closer to Yogtara of Abhijit Vega at any time, any point in time. It's not possible. So the Mars was never going around Abhijit. So this whole claim of this Abhijit being Brahmarasi or Abhijit being a pole star is falsified. And so I mentioned I have been publishing detailed refutation of this dating of Ramayana on my blog, and then I have been announcing them on Twitter. So I also announced this also on Twitter, and that was on 22nd of May. And you can see that I gave link for my article, and you can see here the comments on Twitter from Professor Aniket Sule. He's an astrophysicist at Homi Bhabha Center for Science Education, Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. So he'll be considered an expert in these matters. So, I mean, ultimately, what he claims or what I claim has to go through the experts. We cannot be the judge of what we are saying. It has to be judged by the experts. So here is the expert comment. And he says there is nothing further to argue. As you have correctly stated in your article, ecliptic latitude of Vega is more than 60 degrees. It will never change, barring minor corrections due to the proper motion of Vega. And ecliptic latitude of Mars can never be more than a few degrees, as I have shown you. And he says that these are two well-known facts. And together they will mean that Mars can never be within 50 degrees from the Vega. End of story. You don't need to show any other map simulation, nothing. And he continues, and you can read there. So there is no meaning to this whole claim of Brahmarasi being same as Abhijit. So what we basically have that all of his four evidences are basically misrepresentations of what is in the Ramayana. And all of these have been falsified. But what Mr. Oak does is he has got this 10,000 BC to 17,500 BC, the 7,500 years long span. So still, this will not give you any timing of Ramayana. And so he says that he has found a very specific observation in Ramayana that pinpoints the date of Ramayana. he has got all the way up to the day. And he says that year, 12,209 BC, and he claims that evidence is in the Ramayana, and that involves the sighting of a comet by Lakshman. But the very comet that he talks about, comet 2P Encke, it has it goes around, it has an orbital period of only 3.3 years. So it has been more than 2,000 times, even between this period of 17,500 to 10,000 BC, it has been closer to Earth more than 2,000 times. So how can it be so specific? So here is what he says about his evidence in his book, pages 68 to 72. You can check that he wanted to have a very specific observation that will settle the date, and that date is that specific observation is in the Yuddhakand, where I had to look for a comet that would have been visible in the vicinity of Nakshatramul, and only in the vicinity of Nakshatramul. And he has done assimilations, and he found, that date to be September of 12,209 BCE. And he says it was the brightest around 10th of September of 12,209 BCE. So that's the claim. So what I did was I checked his claim, and he uses this software, Voyager 4.5. And I checked this. I went to the whole year, checked for when this comet is at the brightest, and this is the sky map, comet 2P Encke on 9th of September 12,209 BCE in Voyager 4.5 simulation. And so according to him, this is the brightest comet. Here you can see this comet 2P Encke. And the Mool Nakshatra, and the Mool Nakshatra here, you have the Yog Tara here, the Sol. And you can see that this whole configuration is very well known, like a Scorpio, and in our tradition it will be Mool Nakshatra. So that's where this is according to this simulation. And the magnitude is 6.6. That's the brightest it was in that software in that year. So this unique event, he says, that would have been visible in the vicinity of Nakshatramul and only in the vicinity of Nakshatramul. So he said that it was visible in the Mool Nakshatra and only in the Mool Nakshatra. It was not visible anywhere else. That's why, and that's what makes it so unique. And what is the claim? The claim comes from, the evidence comes from Yuddhakand 4.52 for this claim, that this nakshatra, this comet was only visible in Mool Nakshatra and nowhere else, according to him. And I checked 6 different translations of Yuddhakand again to verify this. So this is the verse, and this is obviously the most important verse, because he has fixed the dating of Ramayana based upon this verse from Yuddhakand 4.52. And says Naniritam Naniritanam cha Nakshatram Abhidyate Mulo Mulvata Asprishto Dupyate Dhumketuna. And here is the translation by Gita Press. So राक्षसों का नक्षत्र मूल जिसके देवता निवृत्ति हैं अत्यंत पीड़ित हो रहा है, उस मूल के नियामक धूमकेतु से आक्रांत होकर वह संताप का भागी हो रहा है। यह सब कुछ राक्षसों के विनाश के लिए ही उपस्थित हुआ है, क्योंकि जो लोग कालपास में बंधे होते हैं उन्हीं का नक्षत्र समयानुसार ग्रहों से पीड़ित होता है। So it is saying that the nakshatra is Mool, and it is being inflicted by this Dhumketu or the comet. So that's all there is. Yes, there is a comet in the Mool Nakshatra, but they do not say that it was where it was before, where it's going to be after, that is not going to be visible in any other nakshatra. There is no such thing in the verse. So the verse does not specify anything that Mr. Oak is taking as a very specific observation that can be dated. This is just a general information that cannot be dated with it's not specific. There will be so many times, years after years, hundreds of times this will be valid. There is nothing specific about it. So we are talking just about a comet being in the Mool Nakshatra, nothing specific. There is nothing to show here his comment that this was visible only in the Mool Nakshatra. But this is only the beginning. I'll tell you the story going much deeper into the comets itself and the astronomy software itself. So we have got this comet 2P Encke that he claims, and he even has named it Comet Lakshman because he thinks that's what was observed. And so what happens is that this comet has got a very short period. It's only 3.3 years. So it's more than 2,000 times in that time period of 10,000 to 17,500 BC. So basically, instead of looking for multiple observations of this comet in the Mool Nakshatra, I tried to track what is a very well-known comet, the Halley's comet, which is designated 1P. And we know that its orbital period is 75 to 76 years. So with year 75 or 76, it comes back again and again. So when I search for that time period between 10,000 to 17,500, I came across 30 instances of this Halley's comet being in the Mool Nakshatra and being visible, I think. So what I have done is I have listed all of that. I'm not going to show all of these. I'll show you just one. But all of these 30, I have it on my blog here with the sky maps and all the descriptions. And this is one of them. It's in the same software that Mr. Oak uses, Voyager 4.5. And let's say on 7th of December, 11,196 BC, that's within his time period. And we had the Halley's comet right here, very close to the Mool Nakshatra's Yogtara Sol. Then what I did, I also checked in another software, Stellarium. And here I found 23 instances of Halley's comet being in the Mool Nakshatra in the same time period. And then again, all of the sky maps I have at this website in my blog. And here's one of them I just to show. And this is 11th of June, 16,576. And here, see those, it's not displaying the comet itself, but these arrows show you that the comet is here and the Mool Nakshatra star is here. So this is not something unique. You cannot use this to identify the time period of Ramayana. But there is much more. So what I then observed is that these two of the software, they do not match. So what happens is that if I take up some of them out of these, what I found 30, let's say in the Voyager, and I list some of them here, let's say 10,216 in the Voyager. But in the Stellarium, the comet is being shown, cited here in 10,163 BC. And the difference between these two is 53 years. And I have given you all these examples. So 53 or 22, the 75 is 52 plus 23. So you'll have that 50, 25 or 49, 50 between these. So what is happening, if you look through these, the Stellarium is consistent in itself with 75, 76 year period of the Halley's comet. And the Voyager is consistent in itself with the time period of this orbital period of 75, 76. But these two are incompatible with each other. So what happens that the data is consistent among itself in its own software, but not with each other. And so then how can we decide which? So obviously both of them cannot be true. So how can we decide which one is true? So let's go further into what the comets are. So basically what are comets? Here I show you what is the description from the NASA website. And they are cosmic snowballs. And when they come near the sun, they form this huge gas cloud, and that stretches for millions of miles. And there are likely billions of comets orbiting our sun in the Kuiper belt, and even more distant Oort cloud. So we have got these billions of comets. So how can you be so specific? And here it shows this is the Kuiper belt. So between, let's say, Neptune and beyond that. So the interesting thing is the comets, they go around, they have got, let's say, a period, they come to Earth. But when they come near the sun, they lose mass. And then when they go into this Kuiper belt, then they gain mass. Obviously, these things cannot be predicted very well. So what you have in the software is just a guesswork. It's not any description. You cannot have any confidence in a software if you are considering the comets. So comets will lose mass when they go near the sun, and they will gain mass when they go through the Kuiper belt. And since the mass and the shape of, they change, so neither its time of arrival nor its brightness can be predicted with accuracy. So forget about thousands of years. The Halley's comet is going to come in like 40 years. We cannot even know the year when it is going to come. And here is the information on that. Although astronomers know Halley's Comet will return sometime in 2060 or 2061. So just 40 years from now, and we cannot even predict when. And here, Mr. Oak is believing in astronomy software to predict it for 14,000 years back. Here, we have got another paper that I have cited for the Halley's Comet. I say the corresponding time scale for the prediction of Halley's orbit to within present day observational constants is less than 100 years, suggesting that the orbit of Halley's Comet cannot be accurately predicted for time scales much greater than this. So you cannot predict, it's not possible. So just because the software shows you something, does not mean that it's true. So he claims that this comet 2P NK was visible only in the Mool Nakshatra. But there is something more specific about this comet 2P NK. As we saw that, for one thing, the maximum brightness is 6.6 even in the software. And for any comet or any body to be visible to naked eye, you got to have a magnitude less than 6.5. So it was not even visible when he claims it to be visible in the Mool Nakshatra. And here you see that I've given you a reference that shows that the naked eye visibility has to be the star or the planet has to be more than 6.5. Less than 6.5 to be visible. So now what happens is that the comet will always go through multiple nakshatras. It's not like that it's just going to stay they have a very wide orbit. So it's never like in only one place it's going to stay. And on top of that, so for one, it's not even visible, and he is claiming that as an evidence. But the other thing was that this comet 2P NK was much more brighter in the past, and that happens because it did not go to the Kuiper belt. So it only has been losing mass; it has not been gaining any mass. NK is becoming fainter with each pass due to the loss of material, as it does not return to the Kuiper belt. The loss of material is not replenished in some way, and so it is diminishing with time. Its highest magnitude on record was 3.5 in 1829. So we know that the brightness of this comet 2P NK was 3.5 in 1829. So what I did, I went to the year 1829 according to this software and tried to find out what is the brightness. But it's nowhere closer to 3.5. The sky map showing maximum brightness of comet 2P NK in 1829 according to Voyager 4.5 was only 7.1. So obviously the software does not match what is the actual record. And the same with the Stellarium software. The maximum brightness of this in 1829, which we know is much brighter, as we have quoted, and it does not match. It's the brightness. And you see here, it's a 6.57. So these softwares, these astronomy softwares are just running some programs, and they are just giving you some output. But it's your job to delve deeper and know whether these outputs have any meaning or not. So we have that the maximum in Voyager, we have maximum brightness as 7.1, and in the Stellarium as 6.57. While we know that the observed value in 1829 was 3.5, there is no match. They don't even match in 1829. How can you make a claim in 12,000 BCE when you don't even match less than 200 years? And in this one, but it goes, there is so much to be refuted. The whole claim is based upon one software that he has used is Voyager 4.5. But if I go to the Stellarium on the same time, 9th of September 12,209 BCE, this comet is nowhere near the Mool Nakshatra. This comet is over here, which is not in the Mool Nakshatra by any stretch of imagination. And that day, the magnitude is 26.5, far, far, far beyond any capability to observe it. So in one software he has it, in the other software it's not. And there's no reason to choose one software over another. So here you have to keep in mind that the software uses 0 as the year. So when it says minus 12,208, then it means 12,209 BCE. And I checked whether I'm observing the same thing in the both software, Voyager 4.5 as well as Stellarium simulation. And the way to check it is you check the Julian day. And there in the Voyager, it was 2737662, and in the Stellarium also 2737662.59. So we know that I'm talking about the same time, same date. In one software, it is there, in another, it is not. So this whole stellarium simulation shows the apparent magnitude 26.50, nothing like even 6.6 that we have in the Voyager 4.5 software. And this position is close to Sattvisaj Nakshatra. It's not close to Mool Nakshatra at all. And the thing is, this has already been pointed out to Mr. Oak by another well-known Indian Indic researcher, Mr. Vedvesh Arch. And here you can go check this site, Facebook, when he said, Sri Nilesh Nilkant Oak has claimed that comet 2PNK was in Mool Nakshatra around September 12,209 BCE, but it was in Mool Nakshatra in the first week of July to 12,209 BCE, not in September. And it was almost 27 degrees away. So he has pointed out that in another software it is not so. And what does Mr. Oak do? He simply affirmed it's an issue and then it brushed it under the carpet. I've never seen him resolving this issue. And here he was says, we can and should discuss this gap in the two claims, July versus September 12,209 BCE. If Stellarium is showing something different than Voyager. So he knows about it. And that was what, 3 years ago. And he just keeps on claiming his date, even though knowing that it has been falsified. And of course, Mr. Raja made a mistake. I think that's because of this astronomy software giving you 1 year difference because they use the 0. So what he claims as 12,209 BC is actually 12,210 BC. But the argument remains the same. So in conclusion, there are no astronomy poison pills. All 4 astronomy poison pills proposed by Oak are based on gross misinterpretation of Ramayana verses. Astronomy software cannot be used to corroborate the positions of comets in remote antiquity due to the unpredictability of comets' trajectories. The dating of Ramayana to 12,209 BCE by Mr. Oak is based on software-generated illusion. It has no basis in reality. The Ramayana uses a standard combination of seasons and months. There is no proof of shifting of months from the seasons in the Ramayana. And the detailed explanation of this will be given in the second concluding part of this talk. If you want to read more about the refutation that I have been talking about, you can go to my blog site and you can read more in detail. So I would like to thank Sri Rahul Diwanji for giving me this opportunity to talk to all of you and to the Sangam Talks team. Tanyaji, thank you very much for organizing. And these are my contacts, my email and Twitter blog accounts or academia if you want to follow. Thank you very much, and I'm open to any questions.
I must apologize for joining late and not being privy to the larger part of your talk. But what I heard from that, I have a few clarifications. Firstly, the Voyager and the Stellarium, there must be some margin of error they talk about. 1. 2, below that I've seen you have given the Julian calendar dates. Am I right? It is Julian
Yes.
calendar. You can correct me wherever I go wrong because you're the researcher, I'm just a layman. The Julian calendar had 13 months when the Gregorian calendar took over. So there is that difference. Thirdly, the magnitude, it's contra-indicative. The higher figure is supposed to be less bright than the lower figure.
Exactly.
So if you can just explain that, these 3 things.
Yes. So what I have shown you that, it's not a question of margin of error. The astronomy software is useless if you go to that period for comets, because the comets periods cannot be predicted beyond even 100 years. So you cannot use any astronomy software, whether it is Voyager or Stellarium. They are just running some program that has no meaning with reality. For the Julian calendar, of course, the date years that you're talking about, all the softwares, they will, when you go to the back, like you're going, let's say in the BC and all, they will all go to the Julian dates because the Gregorian has come much later. So only when they talk about the dates now, let's say whatever it was, I don't know, it was 1583 or something when it was started. So only for the dates later, I mean, even took many centuries for other countries to accept it. So only now will be used the Gregorian calendar. But the thing is that I showed you in the slides is that you can check with the Julian days. So that's like counting the days. And so when you are comparing between different softwares, then you can check the Julian days, and both Voyager 4.5 and Stellarium have that feature where you can note down the Julian days, and from that you can check whether we are talking about the same date or not. As far as the magnitude, yes, the magnitude lower it is brighter, and the higher. So that's what I said. Sword is that even the brightest, even in the Voyager, was 6.6 for in that year for Comet 2 PNK. So obviously it was not visible. And in the other software it was like 26.57, so far below the visibility. Yes, did that
Yeah.
answer your questions?
So now the exact date as per this presentation cannot be determined. So
Exactly.
yeah, so can you generally get into a bracket of the period because and establish that this is not a mythology, it is actual history?
So this is a very complicated question. See, I'm here only to refute the date. In terms of its being history, I mean, of course, it's a matter of faith. So it is in terms of the dating itself, I have not done the dating of Ramayana because I consider it as a very complex problem. For one reason being that it has not come to us the same way it was written. So if I talk about, let's say, Rig Veda, then we know that the Rig Veda, as it was in the original, that's the way it is now. There have been, I mean, there have been so many ways that it has been preserved. So we can be very confident. So if we get, let's say, if we find some datable evidence in the Rig Veda, then we will be confident about dating it. But with the Ramayana, we know that there have been many updates, there have been changes over time. Even I gave the evidence of the verse, which is 9 in some translations, but it is number 22 in some translations. So you have to go into being the authenticity, that there are changes with time. So, and in general, the whole astronomy observation itself, I'm not sure that we have got exactly datable information. Of course, there is Lord Rama's horoscope is there, so the positions are there. Based upon those positions, I think there's a very nice video by Professor H.K. Verma, Professor Verma, who was also at IIT Kanpur, and in which he shows that observation is about, I think, 5,100 BCE or so. So it seems right in terms of the astronomy software, but again, the software itself, whether it is valid or not at that time of period, is a big question. So it's not easy to answer when exactly Ramayana took place.
So the question was, can you give a certain bracket period?
See, I can only give you what is there in the literature because I have not done the research. See, in my case, and I'll tell you, it's just like the JEE exam, like when you try to want to go to IITs and you write the JEE exam and you are given a question paper. And what is the most important thing when you are writing the exam? So when you're writing the exam, you look at all the questions fast, and you find out which question is the easiest to answer, and you spend time. You first answer all the easiest questions, and then even after that, if you have time left, then you go after the complex questions. So in my case, obviously, I'm working. I've got other things. So this is only my interest. So I have to use my time very wisely. So I mean, this is a complex problem. This will take probably years to understand, even the question, collect the data and try to properly analyze. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to use my time to do the dating of what can be less work and more certain. right? So I'm trying to see like whether we have got information in the Vedas, what kind of astronomy information are in the Vedas, what is in the Brahmanas, what are in the, if there are any in the Upanishads, the Sutras. So because there the information is less, uh, uh, so fewer observations, so it's easier to test, and also they have not been changed over time much, so we can have more confidence. So from my point of view, is that I'm trying to develop, just convince myself of what are the dates of these different texts, because the Ramayana and Mahabharata, they are much more complex, much more bigger. So I mean, so you can, I cannot be like dating them just like that. It is a much more elaborate work.
Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Roy, once again for a fascinating presentation. I have a couple of observations and maybe a question. I think as I mentioned elsewhere, in terms of the scientific pursuit of these matters, you're very much right in saying that your research is about refuting certain kinds of conclusions or assertions or claims, and therefore those who try to detract your work by saying, so what is your date, is not a scientific question. It is another project, as you mentioned. And you are right in terms of the complexity about dating. And this is where my first question, and that is, there are these kind of what I will say high dates by Nilesh Oak and others, 12,209 BCE. And then there are the low dates, like in most of the quote unquote modern Western Indologists, or even including someone like Jijit Nadumuri Ravi, who puts the Mahabharata and the Ramayana somewhere in the 1000 to 2000 BCE range. Given that, my first question is, where would you, if you were to kind of make a guess, what date ranges would be kind of, just in terms of your own feeling, where they might fall? And the second question is this, and this is about your what you just now said, that the Rig Veda is much more of a text that can be clearly dated, because what I have heard from scholars like Shrikant Talageri, who may be one of the most important in terms of his study of the Rig Veda, he says too, in terms of, the way the mandalas are presented and which are the original and the, early mandalas and later on. And he says there are interpolations and additions later on. So if you could kind of quickly sort this problem out for a layperson like me.
Sure. Thank you, Professor Rao, for attending my presentation. And so one thing, I mean, of course, about the Mahabharata, we know that the traditional date is around 3100 BCE. And so now there are two things come in here. I mean, if we look into the astronomical dating, we do have observation that will come closer to that date from the astronomy point of view. Obviously, we know that from the archaeological point of view, we don't have observations, I mean, the evidence that go that back. And that brings in this period of 1500 to 2000 BCE dating for, let's say, Mahabharata. So we have got a kind of a disconnect between the archaeological and astronomical. But in terms of astronomical, even not just Mahabharata, I think even in other texts, let's say Satpat Brahman, we have got evidence of around 3000 BC different observations. I will probably talk about them in some other talk. But we do have, so in terms of astronomy observations, we do have observations that are around 3000 BC, maybe a little bit further. Maybe you can go, let's say, around another 1000 BC before that. But I have not, in my own reading, I have not found any observation that will go like much beyond that from astronomy point of view. I mean, there are people who do have these dates, but those evidences are not objective. They are subject to interpretation. And the different people, they interpret those verses differently. So we cannot be very confident. In some of the verses that people consider as astronomical evidence, do not even look like astronomical because they involve so many interpretation of different words that come into these verses. So that makes
Yeah.
and also about
Very
the
quickly about the Rig Veda.
The Rig Veda, I'm pretty confident that Rig Veda has come to us exactly the way it was. I don't think Rig Veda has been changed. I mean, there were many, many ways it has been memorized. Right? Like I think 13, 15 ways we memorized them from front to back, from back to front, then by pad by pad. I mean, words by words. By so many different ways we have tried to preserve the Vedas. So I don't think they have interpolation. The Rig Veda has interpolations. There are only some minor variations, I believe, but they are not interpolations, to my knowledge.
So, sir, I have. I let me put some disclaimers first, and that I think that's very relevant to my question. I'm not a Sanskrit scholar. I'm not an astronomer. I'm not even a historian. I'm a layperson. I happen to have attended talks by Mr. Oak, and I've been attending your talks also.
Thanks.
After listening to all of this, as a layperson, it seems to me that it all depends on which translation we are reading or the respective people are reading and interpreting. It seems astronomy softwares have issues, and hence it seems like sorry, I may sound very curt and blunt, and I have no intention to belittle anyone's efforts, whether you or Mr. Oak or anybody else for that matter. But it seems like people are trying to figure out things, but there are a lot of guesses which are involved into it. And for a layperson like me, it becomes very confusing because very frankly, we not having that knowledge of all the so many different disciplines and subjects, we have to say, okay, I go back to the experts and see what they say. But seems like there is a lot of confusion because of reasons also which you have talked about, and which I'm understanding. As I said, translation, interpretation, software, because we are talking about timeline from where we have no recorded data about the things. So it just is very perplexing for somebody like me. So lay people like me, I mean, what's the way forward? We keep listening, we keep doing our own readings, but then, as I said, we have to go back to sometimes to some experts. So it's very perplexing. Sorry, it's an observation, comment, question. I don't know what you want to call it.
Absolutely. I mean, ultimately, you have to make either your own decision, or I mean, these are intellectual matters. Intellectual matters are not decided by people proposing it, right? They have to be reviewed by experts. So in this case, I mean, of course, it will be nice if he has written his book and I have written my refutations, and it will be nice for the experts to read and give their own verdict. I mean, that's the way intellectual things move. I mean, it is always by the experts, because the people who have no knowledge of the subject matter will not be in the position to decide what exactly it is. So, of course, I mean, you have to look at both sides, either for the time being, either you have to decide yourself, or if there are experts. But I mean, what I have done is I have not shown any of my translations. So we have to go by the standard translations, and standard translations clearly do not show what Mr. Oak claims.
Yeah, understand. So one last thing, and I'm very curious to know about it. You said that while you are very sure about what does Rig Veda contain, I mean the authenticity of what we today know as Rig Veda, it has been like this from whatever time. But
Yes.
you're not very sure about the Ramayana. Would you be kind enough to just quickly shed some light on this? That why do you say that?
See, I gave you one example itself, right? The same verse is like verse 9 in one edition and verse 22 in other editions. So basically, you have let's say there itself a difference of 13 verses. I mean, there are people who have done research on the Ramayana. I mean, see if the Ramayana, what we have right now. But if you go to the original ancient texts like the Vedas and the Brahmanas, and they let's say for one example is that they only talk about the nakshatras. They don't talk about the rasis. But in the Ramayana, you see that the birth configuration at the time of the configuration at the time of birth of Lord Rama, we have the mentions of rasis also. So now you have to think is that the concept of the rasis. I mean, they had the original observations, and then did they convert it into the rasis? So I mean, there's a lot of research on that. That the Ramayana that we have is not exactly the way it has been written by Sage Valmiki. There have been updates or changes to it over time, and for that is for the other experts to decide what is the original and what has been added later. But it makes it difficult for the dating purpose.
Thank you, Dr. Roy. And what I understand from this is, I think the kind of predictions and the astrology and everything that they've mentioned in the Ramayana and Mahabharata, I think it should be enough for us to have faith in them, that at least they had that scientific understanding to pinpoint a specific nakshatra and a rashi and everything and say that they were born in this and this is what happened. And this now, the authors or the writers of Ramayana and Mahabharata didn't really know that people will be doubting them so many years later. And so you should specify mention that in this yug, in the third or fourth repetition of this nakshatra and rashi, that is when I'm writing this down. So they didn't pinpoint exactly, knowing that this will be doubted later on.
Right.
And so, I mean, that is enough to have faith and to call it as history. So, I mean, that's what I understand out of it.
I mean, ultimately, it's for each of us to decide. And I mean, this is so central to us. I don't think we need a scientific validation to believe in Ramayana and Mahabharata. I mean, we just believe in it being the account that it says.
It also the geographical and the all the other things that are mentioned in the Ramayana Mahabharata. There are some things that it's beyond this astronomy, and as you said, that we need to get together totally and understand that yes, it was a history, it is history, and it's just a matter that it happened sometime, but the authors didn't really have that in their mind to give such a specific thing to doubt, etc. But in Kali Yuga, anything is possible. So,
yes, I mean, what is important is that I'm only contesting the dating.
Absolutely, sir. That's I totally understand, and it's required also. Dr. Rao, we'll come to you. Please unmute.
In response to Rohit's concern about history, I think there is now quite a bit of literature about the nature of history itself in terms of the Western Semitic traditions, the prophetic religious claims about specific dates, and as to the reasons for claiming authenticity, antiquity, basically a claim for lands and people. Whereas Itihasa, I suppose, has, and again, in terms of what people have been writing more recently, is the nature of Itihasa and as to why that is recounted, not to claim certain kinds of antiquity or control about places and people, as much as to tease from these narratives primordial, important human lessons about good living, right living, and concern about the world. I think if we can kind of recover that aspect of history, which I think is very important, and really here again, I think these expert endeavors are really fascinating. But along with that, because as you said, Dr. Roy, these are so complex because just in terms of interpolations. A.K. Ramanujan wrote about the 1,000 Ramayanas, which became controversial. But surely, yes, because of the spread of the Ramayana and the way that has been retold in different places at different times, I think it presents that much more of a challenge. But, again, I thank Rohit for kind of raising this question about authenticity, about the nature of history.
Thank you, Professor.
How dependable is Voyager and Celerium, because they are dependent themselves on the Julian calendar, in which the Pope Julian used to arbitrarily decide on the number of days in a year, and not like the Gregorian. And over 10,000, 15,000, whatever number of years, so many, the 13 month used to be 5 and 10 and 15 and whatever the Julian decided. So how can we depend on the Julian, and why have they not switched over to an interpolated Gregorian backwards, so that the 365 days standard year is brought into play, and not this arbitrary any number of days year of Pope Julian?
So this question I will be discussing more, answering in the next talk. How accurate are these softwares? So that's the second part. And but if in terms of this Julian and Gregorian, I mean, you can always go to the Julian days. So the day count is there. So from that day count, you can verify whatever date you have in mind, whether it's different from that or it's the same date. But from the different softwares, you can just go the Julian days. I mean, that's a concept that we already had a long time back, where we had this concept of Argon, right? So we calculate the number of days. So if you don't want to get involved with the Julian days and the Gregorian calendar and the Julian calendar, you can just go by the counting of the days.